The romantic myths of our ancestors, the ones you read in brightly illustrated children's books, paint a picture of a rugged, resilient people. They strode across the land, perfectly in sync with nature, their bodies naturally adapted to every hardship. But as the darkness deepens and the wind begins to whistle its mournful song over the rocks, you realize the truth is far, far uglier. You are not a creature perfectly designed for this. You are a soft, vulnerable animal, and the cold is a predator with infinite patience. There's no innate wisdom telling you how to stay warm, no internal switch you can flip to generate enough heat. You're just cold, and it's awful. This is the ritual. A nightly dance with fire and stone, a gamble with heat and cold. It is a part of your life, an unglamorous, often dangerous part that you would never trade for anything, because the alternative is a long, cold, and silent sleep. And as you drift away, the last feeling you have is the quiet, perfect heat of a stone against your skin. It's the most luxurious feeling in the world. You awaken, not to the warmth of the rising sun, but to the lingering, gentle heat of the rocks you carefully bundled and placed around you. They are no longer sizzling or steaming, just quietly radiating a last, precious bit of warmth, a final testament to their power. You roll over, the dry moss rustling beneath you, and feel the familiar bone-deep cold beginning its slow creep back in. The pit house is a marvel, a true sanctuary from the wind. But it's not an oven. The air inside is still damp and frigid, and your skin, exposed to the night air, feels clammy and goose-pimpled. As you and your companions begin to stir, a new ritual of the morning begins. One that is as messy and unappetizing as the nightly hot rock dance is meticulous. It's time to apply your ancient armor. A life hack that is as gross as it is effective, the body grease. You look toward the back of the cave, where the last embers of the day's fire are a faint, orange heartbeat. It's the single most important thing in your world right now. Fire. It's the one life hack that isn't a myth. And yet, the struggle to keep it alive is a full-time, soul-crushing job. You can't just turn a dial, you have to feed it, coax it, protect it. You reach out, your hand trembling with cold and fatigue, and carefully push a small, dried branch closer to the glowing coals. It catches slowly, reluctantly. A tiny hiss of protest as the flame licks at its bark. The light it casts is a welcome relief, but it's not enough to push back the encroaching shadows or the creeping chill. Remember that fatty meal you had, the one that left your hands and face slick with grease. That wasn't just a side effect of a messy dinner. It was a key part of the plan. You and your companions have a small shared pot, a crude stone bowl or a carved piece of wood that contains a thick, congealed paste of rendered animal fat. The smell is, let's just say it's not a scent you'd find in a high-end perfumery. It's a pungent, gamey, and distinctly earthy odor that permeates your pit house. This is your moisturizer, your windbreaker, your all-purpose protective layer, and the application is a deeply unpleasant but absolutely necessary process. The cold is a full sensory experience. You can taste the metallic tang of it in your mouth, a flavor of stone and damp earth. You can smell it, a clean, biting scent that permeates everything, from the animal hide on your back to the air you breathe. You can hear it in the endless howl of the wind, the rustle of dry leaves outside, and the way the rocks seem to groan under the pressure. Every single nerve ending in your body is screaming at you to find warmth, to run, to do something, but there's nothing to do. You just have to sit here and endure, the minutes stretching into an eternity. This is the first of many nights you will spend like this, and you wonder, with a deep, existential dread, how anyone ever survived a winter. You scoop a handful of the cold, waxy substance from the pot. It feels solid and unyielding at first, but the heat of your hand quickly begins to melt it into a slick, oily liquid. You begin to smear it over your skin, starting with your arms and legs, then moving to your torso and face. The sensation is profoundly strange. A cold, greasy film spreading over your body, creating a barrier that you can feel, a thin, almost suffocating layer between you and the cold. It's not a pleasant feeling. It's a messy, uncomfortable process that leaves you feeling more like a roasted pig than a human. Your hair becomes greasy, your clothes become stained, And the smell? Well, the smell is just a part of you now. It's the smell of survival. The notion that early humans had an easy, natural resilience is just plain silly. Their bodies were no more immune to frostbite than yours would be. They didn't have a magical thermostat inside them. They had to learn to combat the cold through trial and error. And the error part of that equation was often fatal. Think about it. You've probably got an app on your phone that tells you the temperature and warns you about a cold snap. Your ancient ancestor had to learn by watching their skin turn purple and their limbs go numb. Getting a little chilly. Maybe I should wrap up, they would have thought, before the reality of their situation set in. It's like trying to play a video game without a tutorial or a health bar. You're just winging it, and the stakes are infinitely higher. You don't get a respawn. This is a common historical fact. Many ancient cultures, particularly those in colder climates, used rendered animal fats for a variety of purposes, including as a skin protectant. The fat, when smeared on the skin, acts as a layer of insulation, trapping your body's natural heat and preventing it from evaporating too quickly. It's like putting on a second, invisible skin. The wind, which was such a relentless enemy in the cave, now just glides over you. Its icy bite muted by the thick, oily layer. It's a brilliant, albeit disgusting, piece of primitive engineering. You and your companions are not just survivors. You are walking, talking thermal blankets, a testament to the power of a good, old-fashioned smear of animal fat. The warmth from the fire is a fickle friend. It warms your face and chest, but the instant you turn your back, the cold rushes in to claim the territory. You try to lean closer, but a shower of sparks hisses out. A quick warning that you are not in control. You pull back, the sting of a tiny burn a sharp contrast to the pervasive cold. The fire is a barrier, a fragile bubble of warmth and safety in an otherwise hostile world. It keeps the worst of the night at bay, the things that hunt in the dark, and it gives you a tiny point of focus. It's not a source of comfort, it's a desperate necessity. But there is a little-known detail to this practice that a modern person would find utterly shocking. That same greasy, smelly layer that protects you from the cold also serves as a primitive form of sunscreen. Remember that pale, weak sun from earlier, while it may not feel like it has any power. The sun's rays can still burn you, particularly if you're spending all day outside in a harsh, reflective environment like a snowy landscape. The fat, with its high density and opaque nature, blocks the sun's UV rays, preventing a nasty, painful burn that would compromise your skin and make you more vulnerable to the cold. You're not just applying an insulator, you're applying a multi-purpose survival tool. A kind of ancient body oil that protects you from both the frigid wind and the hidden dangers of the sun. It's an all-in-one product that a modern company would probably try to sell for an astronomical price. And the fire itself is a tricky beast. Historians still debate the exact timeline of when early hominids went from simply using fire, harvesting it from lightning strikes or forest fires, to creating it on demand. Was it a gradual, millennia-long process, or a sudden, brilliant flash of insight? Maybe someone, after a particularly miserable winter, just got so fed up with the cold that they smashed two rocks together in a moment of pure frustration, and sparks flew. We'll probably never know for sure. But that debate over the origin of controlled fire underscores just how valuable and difficult a resource it was. It wasn't something to be taken for granted. Losing your fire could mean a death sentence, and the thought is a cold, hard lump in your stomach. And there's more. That pungent, gamey smell that you've come to accept as your new normal. It also serves a very practical purpose. It repels insects. During the warmer seasons, or even on a rare, unseasonably warm day in the winter, the smell of the fat would be a powerful deterrent for flies, gnats, and other biting creatures. It's an added benefit. A happy accident of a survival hack that makes your already messy life just a little bit more bearable. You can't help but think about the modern world of insect repellent, of chemical sprays and lotions, and a small, weary smile crosses your face. You're using the ultimate organic, all-natural solution, and it's a lot cheaper than anything you could buy in a store. You look around the cave, at your small band of companions. They are all huddled together, a tangle of bodies and animal hides, sleeping fitfully. The heat they generate is a precious commodity, and every single one of you understands the unspoken rule you share it. There is no concept of personal space here. No one gets to roll over and stretch out. You are a pile of life, and every breath, every heartbeat, every inch of shared body heat is a victory against the night. The smell is, well, let's just say it's an earthy bouquet of sweat, smoke, and unwashed fur. There's a certain grim solidarity in the funk. You've probably heard people talk about primitive communism or some such thing. But the truth is, this is just survival. You pool your resources, the meager warmth of your bodies, because the alternative is a lonely, cold grave. But the practice is not without its controversies. Historians still debate whether this ritual of slathering on fat was purely for insulation, or if it had a deeper, more spiritual or social significance. Was it a form of body paint, a way to distinguish one's self or one's group from others? Was it a part of a religious ceremony, a way of honoring the animal that had given its life for your survival? The answer is probably a complicated mix of both. The same substance that kept you warm could also be used to create intricate patterns on your skin, to tell a story or to signal your status. The greasy, messy reality of ancient life was probably a lot more beautiful and complex than we give it credit for. It's a fascinating question, a little window into the minds of people who saw the world in a completely different way. Your bedding for the night is a thin layer of dried grasses and leaves, which you painstakingly collected and laid down before nightfall. You've heard it's a great insulator, a sort of natural mattress. The reality is that it's lumpy, brittle, and rustles loudly every time you move. But at least it keeps your body from touching the damp, freezing stone floor. What you don't realize, of course, is that these same dry materials are also a perfect home for fleas, ticks, and other assorted tiny parasites. So as you finally drift into a fitful, shivering sleep, you are not alone. You're a 5-star resort for every critter looking for a warm place to spend the night. It's a particularly niche form of ancient cohabitation that you definitely wouldn't find advertised in a modern-day guide to eco-friendly living. And so, you spend your morning covered in a thick, smelly layer of grease, a human candle waiting to be lit. The cold air, which was such a torment just moments ago, now feels less like an enemy and more like a gentle, manageable presence. You can finally leave the pit house, not in a desperate rush, but in a slow, deliberate movement. You are a different person now, an armored, insulated, and well-greased warrior against the elements. Your body is a masterpiece of ancient engineering, and the fat is the final, perfect layer. The cold is also a thief. It steals your energy, your focus, your will. You can feel it trying to lull you into a deeper, more permanent sleep. Your thoughts, usually a jumble of concerns and plans, are slowing down, becoming heavy and indistinct. The logical part of your brain knows that this is a dangerous symptom of hypothermia, but the primal part of your brain just wants to give in. It seems so much easier to simply stop shivering, to let the cold take over, and to find a deep, dreamless slumber. But you fight it. You force yourself to move, to roll a bit, to flex your fingers, to do anything to remind yourself that you are still here, still fighting. No fuzzy slippers here, just a lot of shivering and the constant thought that you might not wake up in the morning. This is a day-to-day reality you would never have imagined. The constant cycle of finding fuel for your internal fire, creating a shelter to protect you, heating rocks for a few precious hours of warmth, and then covering yourself in a layer of stinky fat to keep it all from falling apart. It's a relentless, exhausting existence, but it is also a testament to the incredible power of the human spirit. You are not just surviving, you are innovating, adapting, and finding a way to thrive in a world that wants nothing more than to see you fail. And as you step out into the pale, indifferent sunlight, a deep, weary satisfaction settles over you. You are alive. You step back into the pit house, the layer of grease on your skin a tangible shield against the cold air that still clings to you. You've endured the wind, you've eaten the fat, you've used the rocks, but now, as you settle in for the evening, a new, more insidious enemy makes its presence known. It's not the chill from outside, but a quiet, unseen peril from within, born of your greatest savior, the fire itself. The hearth, your warm, glowing heart of the home, has a dark side, a deadly secret it keeps hidden in the smoke and the shadows. This is the awful truth about the one life hack you thought was a purely good thing. This is the baseline, the absolute rock bottom starting point for every single life hack you are about to hear about. All the incredible ingenuity, all the surprising techniques, all the brutal methods that our ancestors developed were not born out of a desire for comfort, but out of a desperate need to avoid this quiet, relentless, soul-crushing cold that is seeping into your very bones. You're not a noble savage or a proud hunter. You're a person, curled up in the dark, shivering. The first thing you notice is the smell. It's a thick, acrid, woody smell that permeates every single thing in your shelter. Your clothes, your hair, your skin. Everything reeks of smoke. It's not the pleasant campfire smell you might be thinking of, the one that makes you nostalgic for summer nights. No, this is a heavy, persistent smell. A chemical odor that makes your eyes water and your throat feel raw. It's the smell of a home that is constantly fighting with its own ventilation system. You've probably heard the common historical fact that fire was central to early human life, providing warmth, light, and protection. But the reality is that protection came at a heavy cost. You were constantly, relentlessly, living inside a poorly ventilated chimney. Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back, way back, to a time before central heating and puffy jackets. To a world where survival was less a romantic adventure and more a constant, bone-deep battle against the cold. You're probably snuggled up right now, a warm cup of something steaming beside you, the hum of your refrigerator a gentle lullaby. But I want you to imagine, just for a moment, that you are not there. You're somewhere else entirely, somewhere ancient, and a chill is starting to creep into the air. This isn't a story about clever inventions and ingenious solutions. This is the awful truth, a story of pure, unrelenting misery and the desperate, often futile, fight against the elements. A story, I'm sorry to say, that you would probably not survive. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me, where in the world are you right now, and what time is it? Let me know in the comments below. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air inside the pit house is not clean. It's a soupy, particulate-filled haze. You can see it, a faint, gray mist that hangs in the air, swirling and dancing in the light of the fire. Every breath you take is a small act of self-poisoning. The smoke is filled with tiny particles of ash and soot, and they're getting into your lungs with every inhale. You can feel a small tickle in your chest, a dry, persistent cough that everyone in your group seems to have. It's a part of life, a constant, low-grade illness that you can't escape. It's like living in a city with a permanent smog warning, but without any of the modern amenities that would make it bearable. You'd be coughing up a storm, probably looking like a 60-a-day smoker by the time you're 25. It's the first night of many, a raw and honest introduction to the sheer difficulty of ancient survival. And as the fire finally gives up its ghost and the last of the embers fades into the darkness, you close your eyes, praying that the morning will bring a little warmth, a little sunlight, and a little relief from this terrible, awful truth. The long, silent night stretches out before you, an endless expanse of cold and dread. It's an ordeal you would never sign up for, and a reality you're probably glad you don't have to face. You wake with a start, a small, sharp gasp of frigid air filling your lungs. The darkness is absolute, the cold a physical weight pressing down on your chest. For a moment, you forget where you are. Then the damp, earthy smell of the cave and the rustle of your makeshift grass bed come rushing back, and the full weight of the previous night settles over you. There is no gentle awakening, no soft light of morning creeping through a window. The only change is that the wind's low moan has now risen to a sharp, angry howl, and the cold is no longer just a prickle. It's a deep, vibrating ache in your bones. You force yourself to sit up, a groggy, painful process. Your limbs protest, stiff and slow, and the thin layer of hide you're wrapped in feels more like a cold, rigid shield than a blanket. But the biggest danger is the one you can't see, smell, or feel. It's the silent killer, the ghost in the smoke. Carbon monoxide. When your fire burns in a confined space, with a less than perfect source of oxygen, it produces this colorless, odorless gas. It's a gas that wants to replace the oxygen in your blood, to lull you into a deeper, more permanent sleep. You can't hear it. You can't see it. You can't taste it. The only sign is the slow, creeping lethargy that begins to overtake you. You might get a slight headache, a dizzy feeling, but you'd probably just blame it on a long day of hunting or a poor night's sleep. You'd think, "Oh, I'm just tired." When in reality, you're slowly being poisoned by your own life hack. The sun is a pale, indifferent disk in the sky when you finally emerge from the cave, and the world outside is a study in muted grays and browns. The wind whips at your face, an icy slap that makes your eyes water. You pull the hide tighter around your shoulders, but it's a futile gesture. The animal skin, once a part of a warm, living creature, is now just a brittle, stiff material. It provides some protection. Yes, but it is a far cry from the modern miracle of synthetic fleece or down feathers. You can feel the cold seeping right through it, finding every tiny crack and crevice. This is your first line of defense, your woolly mammoth wardrobe, and it is a brutal, uncomfortable reality. The ventilation system of your pit house, that small hole in the roof, is a delicate, flawed piece of engineering. On a calm night, it works reasonably well, allowing the smoke to drift out. But on a windy night, like tonight, the wind blows down the hole, forcing the smoke back down and filling your shelter with a thick, choking fog. The fire hisses and pops in protest, and you and your companions have to scramble to find a way to redirect the smoke. You might try to cover the hole with a piece of hide, but that just keeps the smoke in. You might try to fan the smoke with a large leaf, but that just creates a messy, swirling vortex of soot and ash. It's a constant, unpredictable battle against a flawed design, a bit like trying to navigate a maze with a blindfold on and hoping you don't hit a wall. Think about the process for a moment, and you'll quickly lose any romantic notions of being a master craftsman of the wilderness. The hide wasn't something you just found. It was a trophy of a brutal kill, a massive, bloody undertaking. You and your companions had to strip the skin from the carcass, a messy, gut-wrenching job that left you covered in gore and smelling of animal. Then came the real work. You couldn't just wear it as is. It would rot, attract pests, and become as hard as a rock once it dried. No, you had to tan it, which in this era meant a long, disgusting process of scraping. You'd have to use a sharp stone or a bone tool to meticulously scrape away every last bit of fat and flesh from the inside of the hide. The hours would bleed together, your hands growing numb and raw from the repetitive, straining labor. It's the ancient equivalent of a gym workout, but with a lot more flies and a much higher chance of tetanus. This leads to a fascinating academic debate. Historians still debate whether early humans had a functional understanding of gas exchange and ventilation, or if their architectural designs were simply a matter of trial and error. Did someone, after a particularly bad night of choking on smoke, have a brilliant flash of insight and figure out that the smoke hole needed to be at a certain angle or size to prevent blowback? Or did they just keep building shelters? And the ones that worked happened to produce the least amount of smoke? The answer is probably somewhere in the middle, but it underscores the fact that this wasn't a problem with an easy solution. The threat of a silent death from your own fire was a constant, terrifying reality. It's like living in a house with a particularly temperamental gas oven that you have to use every day to survive. And then comes the truly unsavory part. A little-known detail that modern life would have you completely unprepared for the use of animal brains. Yes, you heard that right. In many early cultures, the brain of the very animal you were skinning was the key ingredient for softening the hide. It's full of lecithin, a fatty substance that helps to break down the fibers and make the leather supple. So you'd have to mash it into a foul-smelling paste and rub it all over the scraped hide, working it in with your bare, chapped hands. It's a completely organic solution. Sure, but a far cry from the pleasant smell of a new leather jacket. You'd be walking around smelling faintly of... well, you get the idea. It's an ancient life hack that comes with a very distinct and persistent aroma. One you would never get used to. A little-known detail that a modern person would find hard to fathom is the psychological effect of living in a state of constant smoke inhalation. The smoky air wouldn't just affect your lungs, it would also affect your mind. You'd probably feel a persistent, low-grade anxiety, a constant state of alert that was born of a subconscious awareness of the danger. The smell would be a constant, nagging presence, and the knowledge that you could die in your sleep from the very thing that was keeping you warm would hang over you like a dark cloud. It's a kind of stress that no modern person has to deal with. It's like having a smoke detector in your house that is constantly beeping, but you can't turn it off, and you're never quite sure if it's a false alarm or if the house is actually on fire. The sewing itself wasn't a quick trip to the fabric store. The very idea of a store is hilarious. There were no spools of thread, no pre-cut patterns, no sewing machines. Instead, you used sharpened bones, sometimes a bit of mammoth ivory, or a sturdy deer bone as needles. The thread was made from animal sinew, carefully pulled from tendons, or thin strips of hide. You'd poke a hole through the tough brain-tanned leather and then pull the sinew through, a slow, painstaking process. Every stitch was a monumental effort, and the result wasn't a sleek, tailored garment. It was a series of crude seams, often bumpy and uneven, that held the pieces of hide together in a mostly functional but definitely not fashionable way. You weren't just creating a coat, you were engineering a second skin, a bulky, heavy fortress against the wind. It's a common historical fact that these bone needles were vital tools among, but seeing the sheer labor behind each garment makes you appreciate that every single piece of clothing was a true work of art. And the fire itself, your source of all things good, has another, more mundane danger. The risk of a house fire? Your pit house, with its flimsy roof of branches and dried moss, is a tinderbox waiting to be lit. One errant spark, one stray ember, could send the whole thing up in flames. Your home, your sanctuary, your beautifully engineered shelter, could be gone in a matter of minutes, leaving you and your companions exposed to the brutal cold once again. You can't just call 911. There is no fire department. Your only option would be to watch it burn and then to start all over again, with nothing but your wits and your aching muscles. And the fit. Oh, the fit was terrible. This wasn't a bespoke suit. It was a crude, often lopsided garment that did its best to cover your core, but left plenty of gaps for the cold to exploit. A loose-fitting garment might keep you warmer in some ways, allowing for layers of air to be trapped, but it also let in all the wind. A tight-fitting one would restrict your movement and cause uncomfortable chafing. There was no good answer, just a choice between two bad ones. You'd have to learn to move in this new, clumsy body, and your movements would be slow and deliberate, your joints creaking under the weight of the garment. It's a far cry from the modern world of stretchy fabrics and breathable materials. You'd look a bit like a walking pile of fur and bones, and a fashion blogger would probably give you a very bad review. So, as you and your companions huddle together, the fire casting a warm orange glow over your faces, you realize that your most important life hack is also your biggest threat. The fire is a fickle friend, a powerful tool that demands a heavy price. It gives you warmth and comfort, but it also fills your lungs with smoke and threatens to kill you in your sleep. It's a trade-off, a devil's bargain that you have to make every single day. There is no easy answer, no simple solution. You just have to be constantly vigilant, constantly aware of the invisible dangers that surround you. The very idea of a wardrobe is also a modern conceit. You didn't have a closet full of clothes. You had one, maybe two. Garments. And they weren't exactly washable. What did you do when your woolly mammoth jacket got caked in mud? Or became infested with lice? You certainly didn't have a washing machine. You probably just let it dry and then beat the crud out of it with a stick. A rudimentary form of dry cleaning that did more damage than good. Or you just lived with it. You became a mobile ecosystem, a testament to the fact that ancient life hacks for staying warm often came with some very pungent and very itchy side effects. This lack of hygiene is a detail that is often glossed over, but it was a central, unavoidable part of life. You didn't just smell bad, you were a walking biohazard, a fact that probably made social interactions a lot simpler, or a lot more complicated. You probably have a carbon monoxide detector in your home, a small white box that you pay no mind to until its batteries start to die. Your ancestors didn't have that luxury. Their detector was a dull headache, a fuzzy feeling in their brain, a slow, creeping lethargy that was often mistaken for fatigue. They were living on the edge, a few parts per million away from a silent, permanent sleep. And as you watch the smoke from your fire swirl up into the night, a silent, swirling killer in its own right, a deep, weary respect for your ancestors settles over you. They didn't just survive the cold, they survived themselves. As the wind howls outside, a sound you can now only barely hear thanks to the thick walls of your pit house. You watch the last wisps of smoke disappear up the ventilation hole. The silent danger has passed for another night, and the fire settles into a bed of glowing embers. You and your companions have endured the smoke, the coughing, and the ever-present anxiety. But the most powerful life hack you possess is not the fire, nor the pit house, nor even the greasy animal fat on your skin. It's the person next to you. In this brutal, unforgiving world, community is not a luxury. It is a biological necessity, the single most effective defense against the cold, and it is a deeply complicated and often suffocating reality. And historians still debate whether the level of specialization we see in some cultures meant there was a dedicated tailoring profession. Was there a specific person in the group whose sole job was to prepare hides and sew garments? Or was this a skill everyone had to learn and master? A shared burden of survival? The answer likely changes depending on the time period and the region, but it underscores how valuable and essential this work was. Your survival literally depended on the quality of your hide working skills. If you were bad at it, you were cold. It's a brutally simple meritocracy, where your ability to scrape a hide directly correlates to your ability to survive the winter. No participation trophies here. You've probably heard the popular historical fact that early humans lived in groups for protection and for hunting. The caveman posse is a classic image. But the reason for this grouping in a climate this cold was far more basic. You are each a living, breathing furnace. Every person in your group radiates a small amount of body heat, a tiny, precious flame in the darkness. When you come together, that tiny flame becomes a bonfire. Huddling together to sleep isn't just a nice idea, it's a non-negotiable part of survival. You and your companions are not just sleeping together. You are forming a communal thermal blanket, a tangled mass of bodies and hides designed to trap every last bit of warmth. The person pressed against your back is not a stranger. They are a vital piece of your personal heating system. As you stand there in the pale sunlight, the wind biting at your cheeks, you realize just how much your life is centered around these simple, grueling tasks. The pursuit of warmth is not a hobby or a side project. It is the main event. And your woolly mammoth jacket is not just an article of clothing. It's the culmination of hours of bloody, messy work, of scraping and rubbing and stitching. It's a piece of your very soul. A desperate, flawed piece of engineering that stands between you and the cold. And it's not enough. The cold is still there, lurking, waiting. The smell, you'll remember, is intense. A pungent mixture of sweat, smoke, and the distinct aroma of rendered animal fat that you all have smeared on your bodies. The pit house is a shared space, a communal pot of smells and sounds. There is no concept of personal space here. The very idea is a modern luxury, a bizarre and alien concept to your ancient mind. You are constantly in contact with others, their breath on your neck, their stiff limbs poking you in the ribs. The lack of privacy is a suffocating, ever-present reality. It's like living with your entire extended family, your pets, and a few close friends, all in a single-room apartment with no door. A modern therapist would have an absolute field day trying to unpack all of that. So, you're saying your coworker's foot is always touching you while you sleep, and you can't tell them to move. The thought hits you then. A cold, hard truth: you are never truly warm. Not in the way you are now. Snuggled under blankets. There is no moment of complete relief. No time when the chill is fully banished. There is only a constant, exhausting battle, and every small comfort is a hard-won victory. The fire warms your front, but the wind bites at your back. The hide jacket protects your core, but leaves your fingers and toes numb. It's a series of compromises and small personal failures against an enemy that never sleeps. And you are so tired of fighting. And this constant physical proximity puts a severe strain on the social fabric of the group. The same people who help you hunt and build the pit house are now the same people you have to share every single moment with. And the tension can be thick enough to chew on. You can't just walk away when an argument starts. There is no other room to go to. All of your problems, all of your petty grievances, all of your simmering resentments are contained in this one small space. A small disagreement over who gets the largest piece of cooked meat can escalate into a full-blown crisis. A fight that could threaten the very existence of your group. It's like being in a very long, very cold, and very high-stakes version of reality TV, where the prize for winning is not $1 million, but another day of life. But you have to. Because the alternative is to lie down and let the cold win. You have to keep moving, keep fighting, keep scraping and stitching and enduring. Because that is the only life hack that truly matters in this world. The simple, stubborn refusal to give up. And as you trudge forward, a heavy, smelly, lumpy figure against the endless gray landscape, you realize that this is not a story about survival, but about a never-ending fight. You've survived the night. You've endured the brutal wind and the heavy, clumsy embrace of your mammoth hide. But as the day drags on and the sun offers little more than a weak, silvery glow, you realize the cave is not a solution. It's a temporary pause in your suffering. The cave is a drafty, cold, and impersonal space. It's a stone box that offers some protection from the elements, but retains a bone-chilling temperature. It's a bit like living in a walk-in freezer with a particularly stubborn ice machine. You can't get comfortable here. Not truly. It's a place to huddle, not to live. And so, a new idea begins to take root in your mind. A radical, world-changing concept that would shape human civilization for millennia. You need to build a better home. This leads to a little-known detail that a modern mind would find hard to fathom. The concept of personal belongings was probably very different. In a world where everything is a shared resource, from the fire to the food, the idea of owning something that is just for you is a fantasy. Your hide, your tools, your hot rocks, they are all, in a sense, communal property. They belong to the group, and you are simply a steward of them. This is not some utopian ideal of sharing. It's a brutal reality born of scarcity. If you have something that could benefit the group, you must share it. To hoard or to hide a resource would be an act of rebellion, a selfish act that could jeopardize the survival of everyone. There's no concept of this is my blanket or that's my rock. It's all our blanket and our rock. And a failure to abide by that rule could have very serious consequences. The decision is a monumental one. You aren't just looking for a new place to sleep, you are trying to engineer your own tiny pocket of defiance against the natural world. You and your companions leave the cave, not for a hunt, but for a scouting mission. You're looking for something specific, a sheltered spot near a reliable source of water, and crucially, away from the worst of the wind. You find a place, a small, gentle slope, and you begin to dig. This is your next great life hack, and it's a grueling, back-breaking affair. Forget the romantic image of the nimble caveman. You're a construction worker, and your tools are a set of sharpened stones, some sturdy sticks, and a whole lot of elbow grease. And historians still debate whether the social hierarchy of these early groups was based on strength, intelligence, or a combination of both. Was the person in charge the one who could kill the biggest animal? Or was it the person who could best manage the group dynamics, who could prevent the squabbles from turning into full-blown wars? The answer is probably a complicated mix, with different leaders rising to prominence depending on the situation. The leader on a hunt might be different from the leader who decides where to build the next pit house. It's a fascinating question. A little window into the minds of people who were trying to navigate a world where a single bad decision could mean the end of everything. You start with a pit, a large rectangular hole in the ground. You have to break through the hard, frozen earth, a process that sends jarring vibrations up your arms with every swing of the stone. The ground fights back, its resistance a tangible force. This is not like digging in a flower bed. This is an all-out war against the soil. The pit deepens slowly, painfully, and you're covered in dirt and sweat, the cold air mingling with the heat of your exertion to create a strange, steamy fog around your head. This is the birth of the pit house, and it's a foundational step in human architectural history. It's a simple concept: use the earth itself as insulation. The ground, while cold, maintains a more stable temperature than the open air. It's a natural blanket, and you're burrowing underneath it. And as you lay there, your body pressed against your companions. You can't help but think about the incredible power of your collective warmth. The heat radiating from your bodies is the single greatest thing you have. It's a tangible physical manifestation of your unity, a quiet, humming testament to the fact that you are all in this together. The cold is still out there, lurking, waiting. But for now, for this one night, you are safe, you are warm. You are a part of something bigger than yourself, a human organism designed for one purpose to survive. Once the pit is deep enough, maybe a couple of feet, though some will be much deeper, you begin to build the roof. This is where things get really interesting. You and your companions gather long, sturdy branches and tree trunks, arranging them in a conical or a dome-like structure over the pit. This is not about aesthetics. It's about creating a strong, secure frame. The branches are heavy and clumsy, and you have to work together. A delicate, dangerous dance of lifting, propping, and securing. One misstep could send the whole thing tumbling down, and you'd have to start all over again. You've probably seen pictures of these structures in history books, but the reality is less an elegant igloo and more a jumble of sticks and ropes held together with desperate hope. This is the great, awful truth of ancient life. Your best friend is also the person who makes you so angry you could scream. Your source of warmth is also a source of conflict. Your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness. You are not a rugged individualist, a lone wolf fighting against the elements. You are a part of a pack, a messy, smelly, complicated pack. And your survival depends on your ability to coexist with that pack, to manage the conflicts, to endure the close quarters, and to share the warmth. And as you drift away, the last feeling you have is the reassuring and slightly annoying presence of a foot pressed against your own. The warmth of the huddle is a profound comfort, a biological necessity, as you now know. But as the long nights stretch into an endless series of cold, gray days, you begin to realize that the body's fight against the cold is only half the battle. There is a new enemy, a quiet, insidious foe that attacks not your skin or your bones, but your mind. This is the psychological toll of winter, a heavy, suffocating burden that no amount of fire, no amount of fat, and no amount of communal warmth can truly conquer. And then comes the lesser-known, truly ingenious part. The insulation. You can't just leave the frame as is. It would be just as drafty as the cave. No, you need to seal it. You and your companions gather bundles of dried grasses, reeds, and moss. You carefully pack it into the gaps between the branches, a tedious and delicate process. The moss, in particular, is a fantastic insulator. Its dense, spongy fibers trapping air and keeping the cold out. But it's also a pain to collect, growing in damp, low-lying areas, and you spend hours with your fingers growing numb, plucking at the green stuff. You also mix mud and clay with the moss and slather it all over the outside of the structure, creating a thick, protective layer that hardens in the cold air. The finished product looks less like a modern home and more like a messy, organic hill with a hole in the top. It's a testament to ancient problem solving, a perfect marriage of nature and necessity. You're safe in your pit house, yes, but you're also trapped. The world outside is a brutal, unforgiving landscape of snow and ice, a place where a simple trip to collect firewood can turn into a deadly ordeal. So you stay inside, for days, for weeks, sometimes for months at a time. The pit house, which once felt like a palace, now feels like a prison. The close quarters that were a source of warmth are now a source of claustrophobia. The constant presence of your companions, which was a comfort, is now a source of irritation. You can't just get up and walk away. There's nowhere to go. All of your hopes, your dreams, your small personal desires are compressed into this one small, smoky space. It's like living in a permanent lockdown, but without the benefit of a television or a good book. And you're not just cooped up with your family, you're cooped up with everyone. And the tension is thick. You're all just a particularly pungent bag of emotional grenades, waiting for someone to pull the pin. The ventilation is, of course, a major point of contention. You need a hole in the roof to let the smoke from your fire escape, but that same hole is also a massive thermal leak. You can't have it both ways. The smoke hole, or oculus, is a compromise. A necessary evil that allows you to have a fire without dying of carbon monoxide poisoning, but it also means that the warmest air in the shelter is constantly escaping, like trying to warm up a room with an open window. Some people get around this by building a separate angled entrance, a kind of small, smoky hallway that helps to trap the heat. But it's a flawed system, and historians still debate whether the placement of these smoke holes was based on any sort of scientific understanding of air currents, or just trial and error. Was there a particularly clever ancient architect who figured out the optimal angle for the wind to carry away the smoke? Or was it just a matter of, oops, the smoke keeps blowing back in our faces? Let's try moving the hole. It's one of those ancient mysteries that will probably never be solved. The monotony of it all is a soul-crushing weight. The days are a relentless cycle of the same few tasks wake. Find food, maintain the fire, huddle, sleep. There are no weekends, no holidays, no concept of a break. The only thing that changes is the light, which grows weaker and weaker with each passing day. The sun, a pale, indifferent orb in the sky, is a fleeting visitor, a ghost that offers no real warmth. The darkness is a constant presence, a psychological weight that wants to pull you down into a deep, unending sadness. You've probably heard the popular historical fact that the rhythm of ancient life was closely tied to the seasons. But what that glosses over is the profound and often debilitating depression that would come with the winter. It's not just a matter of feeling a little down, it's a complete existential despair, a hopelessness that comes from the endless cycle of cold and dark. You are a biological creature, and your body is screaming at you that something is wrong. The interior of your new home is a revelation. The ground is still cold. Yes, but the walls are thick and insulated, and the wind, that ever-present enemy, is finally, mercifully, banished. You can light a fire in the center of the floor, and the heat, though rising quickly to escape through the smoke hole, still hangs in the air long enough to take the edge off the cold. The air inside is still damp and earthy, smelling of smoke and dried moss. But it is still. There is no wind. The silence is a shocking, wonderful thing. No more mournful howling. Just the gentle crackle of your fire and the quiet rustle of your companions. It's not a cozy log cabin with a roaring fireplace. It's a pit in the ground with a flimsy roof. But for now, for this one night, it's a palace. And the communication? Oh, the communication is a whole new level of hell. Remember how you couldn't just walk away from an argument? Now, imagine trying to talk through a serious problem with a group of people who are also tired, hungry, and suffering from a lack of sunlight. The words would come out slowly, and the frustration would build. A quiet, simmering rage that had nowhere to go. A simple misunderstanding, a miscommunication, could lead to a silent, cold war in the pit house. A tension that would make the air feel even colder than it already was. It's like being in a particularly tense family car ride, but with no radio and no escape. You're just stuck there, in the silence, with your own thoughts and a lot of angry glares. The fire, now in the center of your shelter, becomes more than just a source of heat. It's the heart of your home. You learn to make a small depression in the floor and line it with flat stones, creating a simple hearth. The stones absorb the heat, radiating it long after the fire has died down. This is an important detail. The fire is not just for an hour or two. It's a slow-release heat source that will continue to warm you as you sleep. And sleeping is easier here. The wind-whipped fear of the cave is gone. You can finally let your guard down, just a little bit, and drift into a deeper, more peaceful sleep. Remember that awful feeling of shivering yourself awake. It still happens, but it's less of a violent jolt and more of a gentle nudge. But here's a little-known detail. A surprising coping mechanism that early humans might have used to combat this psychological despair storytelling. In the long, dark nights, with the fire at its lowest ebb, the one thing you had was your voice. You could tell stories. Stories of hunts and triumphs, of heroes and gods, of the days when the sun was strong and the world was full of life. These stories were not just for entertainment. They were a form of therapy, a way of passing the time, a way of reminding each other that there was a world outside of the pit house, a world that was still full of wonder and hope. It's a kind of ancient medicine, a soothing balm for the wounded mind. These tales that passed down from person to person were a lifeline, a flickering candle in the overwhelming darkness. A lot like what we're doing right now. And there is a certain sense of triumph in this. You didn't just find shelter, you built it. You took the raw materials of the earth and bent them to your will. You didn't just survive, you engineered a solution. It's a pride you've never felt before. A quiet confidence born of blisters and aching muscles. You have moved beyond the prey-like existence of the cave and into the role of a creator. It's a small step. Maybe even, but it's a huge one. It's the first time you've ever felt like you might actually win this fight. Of course, as you still smell vaguely of mashed animal brain, and your hair is a greasy mess. But those are small prices to pay for a night without the wind. Besides, a little body odor keeps the mosquitoes away, which is a definite plus. It's like the ancient equivalent of a particularly potent bug spray. And this brings us to an interesting academic debate. Historians still debate whether early forms of art and ritual had a purely psychological function, acting as a way to cope with the hardships of life. Were the beautiful, intricate cave paintings, the ones that show the triumphant hunts and the majestic animals, a form of ancient self-help, a way of reminding themselves of their own power and resilience? Or were they just a form of entertainment, a way to pass the long hours? The answer is probably a mix of both. Art and ritual are a universal human need, and it's likely that our ancestors used them to fight off the winter blues, to remind themselves that they were more than just shivering, miserable creatures. They were creators, storytellers, artists. They were human. You can't help but think about the mammoth hide from the last chapter. Remember how heavy and stiff it was now? You can take it off inside your warm pit house, giving it a chance to air out and dry, though you'd still have to beat it with a stick later to get the dirt out. The pit house and the hide aren't separate life hacks, they work together. The house is the foundation, and the hide is the next layer, the part that keeps the warmth in once you go outside. It's a complete system, a holistic approach to not freezing to death. You didn't just make a jacket, you created an environment where the jacket could be truly effective. So, as you sit there, surrounded by the quiet hum of your companions and the gentle crackle of the fire, you realize that the greatest life hack of all is not a physical one. It's the strength of your own mind, the ability to find hope in the face of despair, to find light in the face of darkness. The pit house keeps the wind out, the grease keeps the heat in, but the stories, the songs, the shared looks of understanding, that's what keeps you human. It's the quiet, internal battle against the psychological weight of winter. A battle that is just as important as the one against the cold. And what about those early structures? As you look at the crude, earthy dome you and your companions have built, you realize this is the genesis of all human architecture. From this pit house, the concept will evolve. People will learn to build walls above ground, to use stone and timber to create more complex and insulated structures. But it all started here, in this simple, functional hole in the ground. You are a part of that history, a nameless innovator who dared to think beyond the cold, hard rock of the cave. And as you feel the warmth of the fire on your face, a deep, weary satisfaction settles over you. You are not just surviving anymore, you are living. The pit house is a fortress against the wind, a testament to your hard work. You're finally free from the constant, gnawing chill that defined your days and nights in the cave. But as you settle in, a new kind of emptiness begins to grow inside you, a deep, persistent rumble in your gut. It's the kind of hunger that doesn't just want a snack, it wants a feast. Your body, the internal engine that you've been relying on to generate heat, is running on fumes. The fire in the hearth is a powerful life hack, but it's an external solution. For true lasting warmth, you need an internal one. You need fuel. And the kind of fuel you need is not what a modern human would call a balanced meal. And as the last embers of the fire begin to fade, you can feel the long, dark night stretching out before you. But this time, you are not alone. You have the weight of your companions around you. And you have the memory of a story in your mind. A story of a great hunt. A story of a day when the sun was bright and the world was warm. It's a small comfort, a fragile shield against the darkness. But for now, for this one night, it's enough. You close your eyes, and you can finally rest, knowing that you have survived another day. You've endured the physical and the mental, and you're ready to endure whatever comes next. The last story has been told. The last of the hot rocks has gone cold. The fire is a memory, a faint wisp of smoke still clinging to the ceiling of your pit house. You are huddled close, surrounded by the quiet, rhythmic breathing of your companions. The psychological war against the winter has been fought, and for now, you have won. But as the deepest part of the night settles in, you feel a new kind of chill, one that is more profound, more final than anything you have ever felt before. This is the moment when all the ancient life hacks, all the greasy fat and warm rocks and communal bodies, fail. This is the moment you confront the grim, awful reality of a cold death. This is the grim reality of ancient living. You are not eating for pleasure. You are eating for survival. And survival in the cold demands an ungodly amount of calories. Your body is a furnace, and it needs a constant supply of high-fat, high-protein fuel to keep the fires burning. That dainty salad with a light vinaigrette? Hilarious. That's a death sentence. Your ancestors, the ones who survived, were not eating greens. They were eating grease. They were eating fat. They were eating anything they could get their hands on that would provide a dense, caloric punch. Think of the most indulgent, greasy, fatty food you can imagine: a huge, bone-in ribeye, slathered in butter and animal fat. Now imagine eating that for every single meal, because you have to, not because it's a treat. And then you have to imagine it with a lot more gristle and a lot less seasoning. You feel it as a creeping numbness, a slow, insistent tingling in your fingers and toes that you can't seem to shake. The warmth of your companions is no longer enough. The heat from your body is being leached away, drawn out into the vast, indifferent cold of the night. This is a common historical fact. Hypothermia, the lowering of your body's core temperature, is not a sudden event. It is a slow, insidious process, a quiet, methodical thief that steals your warmth, bit by bit. You might not even realize it's happening at first. You might think you're just tired, or a little more cold than usual, but your body knows, your mind, dulled by the long winter and the ever-present smoke, is slower to catch on. The hunt is no longer a matter of sport or of an occasional meal. It is a full-time job. It's the constant, exhausting pursuit of a moving food source. You've probably heard of the mammoth hunters, the brave, resilient people who took down massive animals with nothing but spears and ingenuity. That's a well-known historical fact, a romantic image that has been immortalized in countless films and documentaries. But the truth is, the hunt for a mammoth wasn't just about a one-time meal. It was about securing your winter fuel. It was a week-long, dangerous, and sometimes fatal expedition. And every member of your small community had to play a part. You'd have to track the beast for miles, enduring the cold and the wind, until you found the perfect moment to strike. It's a high-stakes gamble, where a mistake doesn't just mean a missed dinner. It means a broken bone, a crushing blow, or a quick, brutal end. You remember the fatty meal you ate? The greasy armor you wore? You remember the pit house and the stories. But now, all of it feels like a dream, a distant, fragile memory. The warmth is gone. All that's left is the cold. You're shivering. A desperate, automatic response begins to slow down. This isn't a good thing. This is a sign that your body is giving up, that it has run out of the energy it needs to fight. The shivering, which was once a source of annoyance, is now gone, and its absence is a terrifying silence. The quiet is a profound, final kind of cold. You would also have to eat the organs. Every single part of the animal was used, from the liver to the heart to the stomach lining. These parts, often dismissed in modern cuisine, are a concentrated source of vitamins, minerals, and most importantly, fat. The liver, in particular, yes, would be a huge prize, packed with vital nutrients that would keep you from getting sick during the long, dark winter. It's not the most appetizing thought, eating a raw or lightly cooked organ, but the taste is irrelevant when your body is screaming for sustenance. It's a pragmatic approach to food, a testament to the fact that ancient survival was not about what you wanted to eat, but about what you had to eat. As your body temperature continues to drop, your mind begins to play tricks on you. Your thoughts become muddled, disorganized. You might feel a strange, exhilarating sense of warmth, a hallucination brought on by the loss of blood flow to your brain. You might even feel compelled to take off your clothes, a bizarre phenomenon known as paradoxical undressing. This is a little-known detail of hypothermia, a last tragic act of a body that is completely and utterly confused. Imagine this in the final moments of your life. Your body, in a last desperate attempt to cool itself down, convinces you that you are too hot. You would take off your thick, greasy hide, the one life hack that stood between you and the cold, and you would expose your body to the elements, embracing a warmth that is nothing more than a deadly illusion. It's a cruel, ironic twist of fate, a final joke played by a merciless universe. So, you're sitting in your new pit house, gnawing on a piece of greasy meat, the smell of cooked fat and a smoky fire filling the air. Your hands are slick with grease, your face is smeared with it. Your stomach feels full. Finally. But there is no sense of satisfaction, only a deep, weary acknowledgement that you have just completed another vital task. You are not just a person, you are a living machine, and the fuel you are consuming is powering the engine that keeps you from freezing to death. This is the unappetizing truth of the ancient diet, a truth that is often sanitized in history books. There was no concept of eating clean or counting carbs. There was only one goal: get as many calories into your body as possible. As quickly as possible. The world around you begins to blur. The faces of your companions. The soft glow of the last embers. The familiar cracks in the wall of the pit house. It all starts to fade. The reality of your situation, the fact that you are dying, is replaced by a peaceful, dreamlike state. You feel a profound sense of calm, a quiet surrender. The cold, which was once a screaming, physical pain, is now just a gentle, numb presence. It no longer hurts. And that, you realize, is the most terrifying part of all. The pain is gone, and so, too, is the fight. You are not a hero, not a hunter, not a storyteller. You are just a body, slowly and quietly giving into the cold. And the psychological toll of this constant search for food is immense. You're never truly relaxed, even when you're full. You're already thinking about the next meal. Where will it come from? Will the hunting be good tomorrow? Will the cold be too fierce to even leave the shelter? It's a nagging, ever-present worry that never goes away. The modern world has granted you the incredible luxury of not having to think about where your next meal is coming from. Your ancestors didn't have that luxury. Their lives were a constant, brutal cycle of hunger, hunt, and temporary satiation. It's like living with a permanent anxiety disorder. But instead of worrying about a presentation at work, you're worrying about a life or death confrontation with a saber-toothed cat. And here we get to the final academic debate. Historians and medical professionals still debate how quickly and how peacefully a cold death would have been in the ancient world. Was it a matter of minutes, a violent, shivering end? Or was it a long, drawn-out process, a slow descent into a dreamless sleep? The answer, like so many others, is probably a mix of both. The speed would have depended on the severity of the cold, the strength of the person, and the effectiveness of their life hacks. A quick, brutal end, or a slow, quiet fade, either way. The result is the same. The cold, the ultimate predator, always wins. All of the ingenuity, all of the hard work, all of the shared warmth that was never enough. It was only ever a way of delaying the inevitable. And there is still a major debate among historians and anthropologists about whether this ancient diet was a matter of deliberate choice or pure happenstance. Did early humans actively seek out these high-fat, high-protein food sources because they knew on a cellular level that they were necessary for survival? Or was it simply a matter of taking what was available? And the groups that happened to get a hold of a lot of fat and protein were the ones who survived and passed on their genes. It's a question of instinct versus intelligence, and the answer is probably a complicated mix of both. But the fact that we are still debating it today shows just how mysterious and incredible this ancient diet was. It's a testament to the fact that our bodies, in their most primitive state, were capable of adapting to and thriving on a diet that would be considered dangerously unhealthy by today's standards. As the final moments arrive, you don't feel fear. You don't feel regret. You just feel a deep, unending peace, a quiet surrender to the cold. The numbness spreads, and your thoughts, once so vivid and so real, become nothing more than a faint whisper on the wind. The world, the long winter, the pit house, the fire. The story is it all fades away and you are gone. As you finish your meal, you rub your hands together, the fat and grease acting as a kind of impromptu hand lotion. A bonus life hack that you've come to appreciate? The smell is distinctive, but you've long since stopped caring. You're warm. Your stomach is full. The fire in the hearth is a comfortable presence, and you can finally, for the first time in a long time, feel a sense of internal peace. The cold is still out there, waiting. But for now, for this moment, you have a full belly and a warm body. And in this harsh, unforgiving world, that is the single greatest luxury you could ever hope for. You're not just surviving anymore, you're thriving. Thanks to a diet that would make a modern doctor faint. The full, heavy feeling in your stomach from the fatty meal begins to fade, replaced by the familiar, subtle dread of the approaching night. The sun, a faint memory in the sky, has finally dipped below the horizon, and the cold air, though held at bay by the thick walls of your pit house, is still a very real and menacing presence. The fire in the hearth is a comfortable, crackling companion, but its warmth is a short-range luxury. It warms the air directly above it and heats your face when you lean in. But the corners of your shelter, where the shadows gather, are still a deep and biting cold. As you and your companions prepare for the long hours ahead, you realize that a stationary fire isn't enough. You need to take the warmth with you, to bring it to where you are. And for that, you have to turn to the oldest and most dangerous form of personal heating, the hot rock. Now, let's leave that cold world behind. You can feel the warmth of your own bed, the soft hum of the fan, the gentle weight of your blanket. The cold is not an enemy tonight. It's just a thought, a distant historical memory. You are safe. The long night is over, and the morning will bring a soft, gentle light, a light that you would have fought so hard for in that other life. Let go of the cold, the fear, the struggle. Let go of the stories, the pit house, the smoke. Just let it all fade away, a whisper on the wind. The cold is a story, and the story is over. You are warm, you are safe, you are home. This is a life hack born of pure, desperate ingenuity. It's a common historical fact that early humans used fire for cooking and warmth, but what is often left out is the micromanagement of that heat. You weren't just sitting by a campfire, you were actively engaging with its byproducts. You and your companions have gathered a pile of smooth, fist-sized stones, rocks that you carefully selected from the stream bed earlier that day, knowing that they were less likely to shatter under extreme heat. Now you're placing them, one by one, into the heart of the glowing embers. The fire hisses and spits as the cold stone is introduced, a brief, sharp protest before the heat begins its slow, deliberate work of permeating the rock. You watch them intently, the stones slowly changing from a dull gray to a deep, ominous red. The heat is an invisible force, a power you can feel radiating from them even a few feet away. This is your personal heating system, your ancient hot water bottle. And it is a beautiful, terrifying thing. You know, from painful experience, that a stone that is too hot can cause a nasty burn, a wound that would surely become infected in this dirty, unforgiving world. And a stone that is too cold is useless. It's a delicate balance, a matter of judging the perfect temperature by eye and by feel. You reach for a long, sturdy stick, a pair of wooden tongs, and with a careful, steady hand, you begin the process of retrieving the heated rocks. A little-known detail, one that would seem utterly foreign to a modern mind, is the ritual of wrapping. You can't just take a glowing red rock and put it in your sleeping space. It would scorch your hide, burn your skin, and set your bedding on fire. No, you have to wrap it. You take a handful of damp moss and thick, broad leaves, and you carefully bundle the sizzling stone inside, creating a small, insulated package. The steam hisses from the bundle, a white cloud in the cold air, and the smell of scorched moss and wet earth fills the air. It's a sensory experience that is both comforting and alarming. The package is now a warm, soft object, something you can finally hold in your hands without fear of a third-degree burn. It's a slow-release heat source, a personal, portable sun that you can tuck into your sleeping space. You and your companions begin to lay out your bedding, the bundles of hot stones carefully placed at your feet and around your core. The heat they radiate is a precious luxury, a small, perfect circle of warmth in the vast cold. It's an almost magical feeling, the slow, steady heat seeping into your cold, weary muscles. It feels like the cold is finally, truly, being pushed back, not just temporarily held at bay. The air around you is still frigid, but the space you occupy is a haven. It's a moment of deep, profound peace, a moment that is so hard-won you can't help but savor it. You probably had a nice, warm bed waiting for you tonight, but this is a different kind of warmth. This is the warmth of survival, and it tastes so much sweeter. But the method is not without its perils. This is where we get into the grim side of things. Not all rocks are created equal. Some, particularly those with a high water content, have a nasty habit of exploding when heated. They crack and shatter with a loud, violent pop, sending razor-sharp shards of rock flying in all directions. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night to a small explosion in your pit house, with hot shrapnel raining down on you and your companions. It's a very real danger, a terrifying, silent lottery of ancient living. You learn to recognize the good stones from the bad, but there is always a risk. Every time you place a cold rock in the fire, you are making a small, silent wager with the forces of nature. And the fire itself, the source of all this warmth, is a constant, nagging responsibility. This is where the academic debate comes in. Historians still debate whether early human groups had a system for maintaining a perpetual flame, or if they had to rekindle it every single day. The hot rock ritual, in a way, supports the latter theory. If you could heat up stones and use them as a portable heat source, then maybe you didn't need a fire burning all night long. Maybe you could let the embers die down, preserving the precious wood for the morning, and rely on the stones to keep you warm. The fire could be a daytime tool, a way to cook and to work, and the hot rocks could be the nighttime solution. It's a fascinating thought. The idea that the invention of the hot rock changed not just how people slept, but also how they managed their most precious resource, fire. And when you finally do succeed, the work is far from over. The real life hack isn't the killing. It's the efficient use of the kill. You didn't just go for the muscle meat, the steaks and roasts that we prize today. You went for the good stuff. The caloric gold mine that a modern butcher would probably throw away. You'd get to the bones and the marrow. Bone marrow is a particularly valuable and often overlooked detail. It's packed with fat and nutrients, and it was a prized delicacy. You'd have to crack open the massive bones with a stone, a process that requires a lot of force and a lot of patience. The marrow, a rich, fatty goo, would then be scraped out and eaten, a warm, unctuous treat that was absolutely vital for survival. The bone itself would be a source of a new kind of sustenance, a gelatinous, nourishing liquid that you would extract by boiling it over the fire. It's a bit like making a prehistoric bone broth, but a lot more intense and with a lot less garnish. You are not just a person lying down to sleep, you are a complex, interconnected system of biological and technological hacks, all working together to keep you from dying. You have the greasy food in your stomach, a kind of internal fire that generates heat from within. You have your thick, smelly hide, the external shell that keeps that heat from escaping, and you have your hot rocks, the portable, radiant warmth that pushes back the last vestiges of the cold. It's a beautiful, fragile ecosystem of survival, and every single part is absolutely vital. If any one of them fails, if you get a bad hunt, if your hide gets a tear, if a rock explodes, the whole system could come crashing down. You feel it first as a prickle on the back of your neck. Not a sudden shock, but a slow, insidious presence that makes the tiny hairs on your arms stand on end. You're hunkered down in the mouth of a shallow cave, the last rays of a pale sun casting long, skeletal shadows across the landscape. The day's meager warmth is a fading memory, and the air is now a cold, wet cloth pressed against your skin. You shift, trying to find a more comfortable position on the hard, uneven ground. But there is no comfort to be found, only the dull ache of your body, a symphony of small complaints against the incessant pressure of existence. Your fingers, despite being tucked into the crook of your arm, are stiff and unresponsive. You try to wiggle them, and the sensation is like moving small, frozen sticks. As you finally settle in, the heat from the stones a gentle, comforting presence against your body. You can feel your muscles beginning to relax, The constant tension, the ever-present shiver, starts to fade. The cold is still there. Yes, but for the first time, it feels like an external force. Something outside of you. Not something that has permeated your very being. You close your eyes, the last thought in your head a quiet, weary thank you to the silent, hot stones that have become your saviors. This is not just a bedtime story, it is a story of endurance, of resilience, of a kind of human spirit that you can't fully comprehend from the comfort of your modern life.